In other words, if you're saying as long as Taiwan provides the semiconductor chips, we'll help them, but after that, they're on their own?
No, actually, Sean, and that's again how my position's been caricatured. I will remind you and everybody else that right now the United States.
I'm listening.
No, it's not what I'm saying, because well, I'll give it to you very simply. Right now, the United States' policy towards Taiwan is a one China policy. Donald Trump was derided. He was made fun of for daring to pick up a phone call from the Taiwanese president. The United States of America right now does not even recognize Taiwan as a nation. I view it differently. I am clear that we will defend Taiwan. I'm the only politician in either party that has the courage to say it.
Oh my
and then
gosh,
I would resume. Well, I would resume the current position of the United States after we've achieved semiconductor independence.
Okay, so you guys know I'm paid to have opinions. So here we go. Welcome back to the show. Dana Lash here with you. This is one of the dumbest things that I've ever heard, and I didn't even have the benefit of alcohol to kill the brain cells with it. This is Vivek Ramaswamy, and my friend Sean is grilling him on this because his position doesn't make any sense. First off, here's the issue. What he's saying now in his interview is quite different from what he told another friend of mine who has a radio program. It's quite different from what he told him. I mean, in this, he's trying to say that, no, I never said as long as they provide us with semiconductors, but then after that, they're on their own. I didn't say that. He was flipping it in the actual interview. What he had said, and he'd said this repeatedly. He has said, in one interview, he said, I'm quoting the transcript. He talked to a friend of mine in an interview, and he said, quote, I'm being very clear, Xi Jinping should not mess with Taiwan until we have achieved semiconductor independence until the end of my first term, when I will lead us there. After that, our commitments to Taiwan, our commitments would be willing to go to military conflict, will change after that because that's rationally in our self-interest. So that's one sentence. The second part of that sentence sounds insane. The second statement, he had said, he was talking about Taiwan 2028. He had talked about surfacing these SSGNs. He says, quote, we're going to bring them to the Indian Ocean, etc. We're going to load them up with tomahawks, blah, blah, blah. He goes, that commitment is only as far as 2028, by which point I will have led the United States of America to achieve semiconductor independence, and we will not take the risk of war that risks American lives after that for some nationalistic dispute between China and Taiwan. So those were his two quotes prior. That's literally exactly what he said. His problem is he doesn't understand the region or the tensions in the region. I would love it if it was all kittens and sunshine and it was just about semiconductor independence, but it's literally about maritime status quo and the second most important trade route in the world. I mean, the entirety of the South China Sea. And for the people who share one tooth and one brain cell amongst 10 of them, the drive-bys, let me make this very clear. Noting this is not the same thing as saying, oh, I demand we have military intervention. My point in bringing this up is to illustrate how he has no idea what in the hell is going on in this region. This is not a learning on the job type thing. And I am pretty damn fed up. We have enough rat bastard people in the media pulling enough smear jobs on good people out there. I have had enough with a candidate getting out there, sticking his foot in his mouth, and then saying that you accurately quoting the words that he literally created with his voice box, pushed out of his throat, through his lips, into a microphone, through a camera, to millions of people across the country, that when you quote him accurately upon having heard that it's the media smearing him. No. We're literally quoting what you've said. We're literally quoting what you've typed and tweeted. There's a big difference. He cannot go for 2 weeks without flipping on something. Now, here's the other thing about this. In addition to it not just being about semiconductors, where does this, okay, he goes, yeah, I'm going to lead us to semiconductor independence. Oh, just magically in a couple of years? How? Not a single one of these cats have been saying this have said how. How? How are you going to do that without some big ass type Solyndra government intervention? And this is the guy who's talking about mandatory national service for everyone and demanding that people who were born here and who've had ancestors who've shed blood here take a citizen test. So I'm just curious, how, pray tell, are you going to do that in just a few years' time without having massive government interference? Never really have said that, right? I mean, this is not like buying a company and then pumping, dumping, and then selling it off. I mean, it's just not like that. This is different. My other point on this, because I don't think he had heard of strategic ambiguity until one of his advisors told him this week. Because he says, yes, well, we have strategic ambiguity. You all know what that is. Strategic ambiguity is we pretend that Taiwan is its own entity without saying the words that Taiwan is its own sovereign nation. So it's kind of like you're triangulating a little bit. It's weird, and it's Republicans and Democrats have both done it. It makes Stephen Yates infuriated and a lot of other people because apparently just recognizing Taiwan invokes the wrath of China and the big scary leader who got terrified of a yellow cartoon bear. I don't know, but that's the strategic ambiguity. And so he says that. Well, we're not going to have any strategic ambiguity. We're going to send all our warships there. We're going to surface our subs. We're going to load them with all these missiles, and we're going to threaten the hell and get militarily involved in Taiwan and go right up to, really going into a full-scale hot conflict. And we're going to go right up to the hotline. That's it. And then when we get our superconductor independence, which how we do that, I have no idea, and I've never actually articulated that in any interview where I've gone on and on with my prepackaged remarks. Then what we're going to do is then we're going to take all that stuff back, and then we're going to leave Taiwan alone, and we're going to revert back to the strategic ambiguity. So wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You're going to recognize Taiwan as its own entity until we magically get the semiconductor independence, right? And then you're going to go, oh, wait a minute. No, we're going to go back to that. We're going to close Pandora's box and wrap it all back up nice and neat. And you think China's just going to go along with that? Is that the general understanding here? And they're just going to go right along with it? Really? This is the dumbest response to a foreign policy question from a political candidate I've ever heard. I'm going to tell you something. You don't have to be a military expert or even a foreign policy expert to understand, as an educated citizen in a republic in which you have every right to know about and take part in, never ever be cowed into thinking that you got to be one of these experts to understand some of these huge issues that are facing your nation, because that's what the people who want to present themselves as the new noble class, they want you to believe that because it gives them more power. However, there's a difference between that and not knowing anything. I'm just shocked by this. Like, what is so you're going to go back to can you think that after we literally build up a troop presence in that part of the world, and we recognize Taiwan as its own entity, and then we magically get our magically, then we're going to be like, wait a minute, just kidding. And then we're going to take it all back, and China's going to go, okay, yay. And then it's going to be fine and go back to the way it was before. That's literally what he's saying. That's his plan.
Yeah. And it doesn't make sense, because that means our chip independence would have to be reliant on stuff from China.
What?
It's crazy.
I'm sure they're going to overlook all the other previous stuff and still work with us on that.
They'll never do that.
Yeah. I mean, I just would like for him, I will say, I'm getting to the point where I dislike him as much as I disliked Mitt Romney in 2012. And if you listened to me on air in 2012, boy, every Republican hated me. I was like, I am not at all. I mean, I told you my late friend, dear friend, and my former boss, Andrew Breitbart, and I got into a knockdown drag out about it. And that's why one of the reasons why he was so mad when he went on stage at CPAC and he was saying, it's either us or them. And he was yelling because he told me before he went on stage, he was like, you listen to what I'm going to say. And he never prepared his remarks. He's like, you listen to what I'm going to say. And he went out and he was telling everyone, you either have Romney or you got, Barack Obama. What's your choice going to be? Is it going to be the statist or liberty? Your vote is liberty or statism. Pick your route. And I get what he was saying, but I had a lot of people mad at me for that. But I will say this, and now I'm madder because I feel like this is making me say something remotely, even though it's accurate. I don't want it to sound nice about Romney. I mean, at least when he flip-flopped on a position, he held it for a little bit, I mean, at least in the same interview. This is my problem with this guy. And then he goes out and says, oh, well, everyone's lying about me. Dude, no one is lying about you. You literally say this stuff, and then then you go back and you workshop it with your team, and you spend all damn day on Twitter attacking everybody who dared to quote your own words as being, a neocon or bought off. You're the guy who literally still has active contracts with CCP companies in China. You're the guy who literally still has a stake in the company that you founded, and you helped create their big product of the database for COVID surveillance, and you tried to sell it, the digital passport. You're the guy who's still involved in a lawsuit over mRNA tech, and you're telling us that we're bought off. You are literally, I don't think he's a stalking horse for Donald Trump anymore. I think Vivek Ramaswamy is a stalking horse for Big Pharma. This is not a learning on the job type thing. And I'm going to add this. Pointing all this stuff out for the people who don't know what the blank a neocon is doesn't make you a neocon. It just makes you educated. To say, when you take away strategic ambiguity and you build up, you have troop build up in Taiwan, and you start giving them weapons, which, they want to buy our weapons now. We could be doing that now, but Vivek Ramaswamy hasn't mentioned that because I seriously doubt that he even knows that that's happening or has occurred previously. I mean, what are we going to do if all hell breaks out in the South China Sea? What then? And then he sits here and he acts like we're going to hold China over a barrel over oil. Really? China invited Iran and Saudi Arabia to BRICS. Does he know what that is? Does he know what that means for the petrodollar? Does he know what that means for America's power and influence as it relates to gas and oil? This is ridiculous. Why in the hell are we pretending like this guy's a Republican? Get mad at me all you want, but I'm saying what a lot of people don't have the balls to say. Tired of it. I've got draft age kids. I'm paying a butt ton in taxes every year. Everybody's broke. Our dollar is in the decline. We are no longer independent for our sources of energy. And we're farting around with learning on the job. If this was like 30 years ago, fine. Maybe that's something the United States could withstand. The United States cannot withstand the Republican Beto O'Rourke in the White House. And I rarely get this ticked off, but I'm at my limit. And I'm at my limit with people who are so terrified of their own audiences, whether it's in talk radio or in cable news, to say the obvious. These people are never going to be honest with you. They're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. Shallow and vapid. Like I said, I've never cared about making friends. But I do care about toddler stomping in another war because we have someone who's even more ridiculous in some aspects. Well, I think the podiums, I actually think Vivek Ramaswamy may be on level with Joe Biden in the White House. 59% death tax? No one's going to talk about that? You're going to sit here and cite a known socialist as like your inspiration for some of your economic policy? Did some people in the conservative sphere hit up Hunter Biden's crack rock? I'm curious. You can send all hate mail to KISS@myadoublesnakes.com.